Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's event. Ethical Hackers, Incident Responders, and Cyber Analysts, Closing the IT Skills Gap with the Best Training. I'm Ann Masicki, Marketing Manager at Logical Operations, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by John O'Keefe, Technology Education Jedi, who has an exciting agenda planned for you today. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to John to get us started. John?
Hi, everybody. John O'Keefe, Technology Education Jedi, here with Logical Operations, and I'm excited to be speaking to you today to discuss the different roles that come in the IT career stack. You've done some of the basic IT training out there. So, as you can see, my contact information is here. That's my email address, jedijohn@logicaloperations.com. And my LinkedIn is there as well. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and also email me if you have any questions. I'm happy to communicate with you one-on-one to help you kind of find the best career for you, or if you're offering these types of trainings to help you ramp up and offer the best IT training available on the market. Have a pretty good agenda today. So what we're going to be focusing on is three different topics. We're going to briefly discuss why 2019 is the year of data. We're going to talk about the next 10 years, and we're going to go back to the future for that, and you'll see what I mean when we get there. We've accumulated all of that knowledge. We're going to talk about ethical hacking versus incident response versus IT and cyber analyst, and go over what the right career for you or the right training for you to offer. So let's go ahead and jump in here. 2019 is the year of data. If you've attended any of my other webinars, you've seen this slide because I firmly believe that this is the most important thing that we can take away from this presentation. World's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And 7 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are tying human behavior to data. Now, in 1980, the largest companies in the world were ExxonMobil, General Motors, Ford Motors, IBM, and General Electric. Now that we're into a new era called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we have many companies out there that don't really produce anything. And without giving you a full-on history lesson, but as you can see, the Industrial Revolution, which we're all probably familiar with from our days in grade school, occurred specifically in England in the late 1700s. And it's the first time we had steam power and mechanization and were able to mass produce goods. But there's been other industrial revolutions, and for 2.0, we can think of the assembly line and mass production, things like the automobile. And the third industrial revolution is actually centered around electronics. Up until recently, that's been the era we're in. But now, with so much information being sent back and forth across the internet, and with larger bandwidths and larger storage capacity, we're really more in an age of information than we are anything else. And that's what's been recently called the fourth industrial revolution. See here, these are some of the largest companies in the world now. What exactly do they do? Does Google make anything? They make a few products. It's not like they're taking a ton of natural resources, turning it into a ton of different medical instruments like GE would or Xerox would. They are a company that's providing information to consumers, and the trade-off they get is they get your information in return, and they use that to advertise to you. They use it to sell to other companies, use it to keep track of what you're doing so that they can tell companies what people are likely to do based on what others have done. Think about Uber. Uber is the world's largest provider of transportation services. They don't really own any of their own cars. And Amazon is the world's largest company. For the most part, all they are is a marketplace. They're essentially a digital piece of property that makes all their money charging either rent, but for people who want to sell their products there, or collecting information on everyone who walks through the proverbial door, and they do a ton with that information. Facebook, the largest producer of media content, doesn't make any of that content. It's all produced by us. So, keeping that in mind, we need to understand the world we live in and what we're going to do in terms of careers and education and how we're going to position ourselves over the next 10 years. So in order to really understand that, I'm going to offer us a great opportunity here. I'm going to get Doc Brown from Back to the Future come and give us a ride in his DeLorean, take us into the future. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go from 2019 to 2030. We're going to take a look at what the world is like in 2030. What we're going to find out is that we're living in a true information age. The most popular technologies, careers, all rely around one single thing. So as you can see here, when we're standing in 2030, these are going to be the top 30 technologies last 10 years. 2020 to 2030, these are the top 30 technologies. Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain, big second. It's like bots and mobile technologies and human computer interaction, collaborative tech, advanced materials, smart cities, faster, better internet. All of these things are there, and they are the technologies that have become super popular and super important from 2020 to 2030. Remember, we're in 2030 right now. So looking back, we can see that we hit a milestone amount of data that there was around 2025. And by 2025, there was 175 zettabytes of data worldwide. Now, how much data is a zettabyte? It is 1 billion terabytes. So there will be about 175 billion terabytes of data worldwide by 2025. How much data is that? It is more data than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Also, more data than there are grains of sand on Earth. So there's just going to be a massive amount of data by the time we get to we're looking back from our time machine then. There's also going to be 500 billion internet connected devices by 2030. So we know that there is so much communication happening. A lot of that communication is going to be business related, need to be safe and secure and encrypted, and contain valuable, identifiable information. How are we keeping all of that safe? And then lastly, there's going to be a rise of machines and artificial intelligence and people whose jobs will be replaced. So much so that by 2030, we're going to have 375 million employees are going to need to switch categories by 2030. They're going to need proper training to do so. These are people that are going to be entering data careers like IT, cybersecurity, and business intelligence. Not all sunshine, of course. In the time we've gone into the future, we've seen that cybersecurity spending has exceeded $1 trillion just by 2021 and is expected to exceed $5 trillion cumulatively by the time we get to 2030. And there have been attacks, ransomware attacks, occurring on a more and more frequent basis. But in 2019, it was 4 seconds and 11 seconds by 2021, with some predicting that we may see cybersecurity attacks under 1 second, so occurring every less than 1 second apart by the time we get to 20. What have we learned with our magic almanac as we went into the future? We've learned that there's going to be 500 billion connected devices. We've learned that there's going to be 175 billion terabytes of data and growing. 375 million people are going to be displaced by AI. So that's the future we just traveled into. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to travel in the future, our own time, and take a look at what's going on right now. So currently, as we speak, we have a cybersecurity gap that is still not shrinking. 69% of organizations say their cybersecurity teams are understaffed. 58% of unfilled open cybersecurity positions, and nearly 40% of university graduates who take a cybersecurity degree are not prepared for the challenges that they get into the market. I see this very, very frequently. I am a frequent contributor on several Reddit forums for network security students and IT security students. These forums are specifically designed for people looking to increase their skill set, land a new job or better jobs. And I would have to say that at least of the posts that I see are from individuals who have a university degree, maybe even a master's degree in information services or IT security, who are struggling to fill the challenges that they have when it comes to what they're doing in the marketplace. They're asking about certifications. They don't believe that their skill set is up to par. They're going to interviews and not getting jobs. And it's a challenge for both businesses and students because the academic careers and the way that academia positions cybersecurity tends to be a little behind the times. So they don't necessarily have the requisite skill set with which they can go out and find a job. And then, of course, that means that there are not enough candidates out there. So firms are struggling to find the right people, which is why 3 out of 4 businesses are going to face a visible disruption, according to Gartner, due to the IT skills gap by 2020. Now, that means that 75% of all businesses are going to have to shut down a web server. They're going to have to stop sales for a specific period of time. They may not be able to market. They're going to face a challenge that's going to cause their business to be interrupted because they quite simply either don't have the appropriate people on staff or the people they do have on staff are not well trained enough to handle the issues they're having. So this is a real struggle for organizations. Earlier in the year, there was a hack at Arizona Beverage Company. Now, they had outsourced all of their cybersecurity. And of course, it took them several weeks to investigate and figure out what exactly happened. Time, they realized that they needed an incident response team to come in and assist them to find what had happened, to help remediate it, and to get their systems. They were 2 weeks without their website being up service to their. Now, that is an eternity for most logical operations. We're these 2 weeks of downtime. I highly doubt that we would lose a lot of customers who would have covering for that. So organizations really need that they have the appropriate personnel and appropriate training to make sure that they're prepared for these inevitabilities because 75% of all businesses are going to suffer a visible disruption due to the IT skills. Not getting cheaper either to remediate these attacks. And as you can see, telecom, consumer products, retail, and banking, this is the percentage of people, according to Gemini, that will spend more than $50 million will spend more than $50 million with on IT breaches over the next 2 years. As you can see, these numbers are very, very high. And it's imperative that we make sure that we're prepared for these breaches because the only way to lower the dollar value is to have it so that we have teams in place, well trained, who can assist with. 7% of small businesses 2018 suffered a cybersecurity attack, and 44% of those had 2 to 4 attacks. You can see this is not just a problem that is aimed at large businesses. Almost half of all small businesses had one cyber attack in the past year, with almost 44% having 2 to 4 attacks. That is an incredible amount of cybersecurity activity, especially when you consider that 65% of small businesses fail to do anything following a cybersecurity incident. So if almost half businesses are being attacked multiple times per the year, and almost 2/3 of them are doing nothing about it, then that is a serious issue that small businesses need to address. And the reason they're having such struggles with because of the lack of properly trained persons in the workforce and help them address this. Of course, that we're always fighting against the human element. See here from these two images, these really sum up the challenges that many cybersecurity and IT professionals face on a day-to-day basis. Buy all of the hardware that you want and spend millions of dollars investing in equipment, but nothing is really going to trump human. Nothing is going to trump a person who clicks on a bad link, who gets a phishing email and fills out a form, who has no antivirus software installed on their computer because they uninstalled it because it was bothering them at work, or who writes their password keyboard. These are challenges that we're going to face no matter how much money we spend, because there is always a human component to the cybersecurity element. In fact, human error accounts for 90% of all cybersecurity incidents. So, no matter how much money you spend upgrading your technology, spending money on hardware and software solutions, you are always going to struggle with the people inside your organization. Why no organization is immune from the cybersecurity crisis. As far as the training industry, see the top 3 IT priorities over the next 12 months. IT industry is cybersecurity solutions. Cybersecurity solutions is what over 50% of them want to put all of their training budget into. You've also got cloud computing and analytics and business intelligence. As far as the skills gap, of course, you've got cybersecurity is the number 2 with almost a 40% skills gap. And this is all from the New Horizons 2019 State of IT Training. So as we can see here, 2019, cybersecurity training is still incredibly important for IT professionals. Something that can be overlooked. Even if you already have training and already have a career in cybersecurity, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that organizations are still interested in pursuing even more training. As far as regular training from an HR perspective, training and development is still the HR focus in 2019. Obviously, a ton of things HR departments really want to look at, such as compliance, sexual harassment training, appropriate pay scales, etc. But employee training is the number one thing they're concerned about. And that's because here in the United States, the job market is very, very good. We have low unemployment, which means that people are able to switch careers. It means that businesses need to make sure that they're offering the employee experience that they can. And that's why 66% of all organizations agree Retention is the growing concern from them. Nearly half of all organizations say that strong job market is their turnover rate. What does that mean for you on this call? It means that if you're running a business, employee training is really, really important. It means that if you're looking for a certification, it's something that your company may invest in you because they want to keep you happy and make sure that you're a prized employee. And if you're a training center or a training provider, you're going to want to know that IT certifications are a $3 billion a year industry in 2019. So there's a huge opportunity to take a piece of that large pie and make sure that you're offering the latest and greatest training that these companies are really looking for. So far, we've gone into what's going on in 2019, how it's the year of data. Took a trip in the time machine DeLorean to the future and looked at what the next 10 years are going to look like. And now, with that knowledge, we've come back and looked at what 2019 is like. And we've known that now we have a huge cybersecurity skills gap. 75% of businesses are going to face a visible disruption by next year for the IT skills gap. 90% of all incidents are caused by simple human error. Small businesses are incredibly susceptible to attacks. And that, quite honestly, training is more important than ever for a variety of reasons, the least of which is keeping employees happy. So we have some pretty good knowledge now to take a look at these three careers to try and understand exactly what the difference is between them and how in 2019 they can be most applicable. Let's take a look at ethical hacking. To look at responders, and we're also going to take a look at security analysts. And now, why did we pick those three job roles? So, in terms of a standard IT career path, one of the first classes you might take if you're new to IT is a cyber safe class or an end user awareness class. It will give you some basic, low level security ideas around what your company is doing. The perfect entry level course for someone who's never taken an IT class before and is something that can be delivered to most organizations. But that's where you may start. From there, you may take a certification out there that helps you with break fix or helps you with basic help desk support. You may go into IT help. This is typically where a lot of places put your beginning IT career. From there, you may take some network certifications. You may look on going into a network support role where you'll be responsible for monitoring traffic that's going back and forth or making sure that your business always has uptime on all their different services. And then you may go in and take some security certifications that are a little bit broader and kind of bring you to an IT security position. But from there, a lot of people don't really know what to do next. And what's typically they do is they either take a big leap and go for an end level certification, like an information management certification, or they may go into a vendor specific technology to which they work for. However, there are three kind of vendor neutral roles that a lot of people fall into, sometimes without the necessary training. So that's where we can start taking a look at what your next moves in your career. If you're in a help desk position, can you skip over network support and IT security? Absolutely. If that's a passion of yours, you can move directly in to ethical hacking, incident response, security analyst. I do recommend typically trying to follow this as a general career path. Sometimes when you skip network support or IT security, you may miss some of the foundation. But from an IT security perspective, this is where you really leap. If you're looking to continue your career, really the three hottest areas when it comes to IT security specialists. You can become an ethical hacker, an incident responder, or an analyst. They really give you the broadest kind of swath with which to continue your. Now, don't just take it from me, take it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics here in the US. The 2018 median pay for these careers are $98,350. Typical work experience is less than 5 years, which is really great. So it's great pay for having less than 5 years of work experience. And then from a job outlook perspective, 32% growth, which is much, much faster than average when it comes to. As a matter of fact, if you look down at the chart down there, you can see IT security at 32% when you've got regular computer skills around 12, 13%, and then regular just occupational skills at 5. So IT security is a fast growing, rapidly moving job. And that really goes back to the knowledge we gained when we went to the future and we saw all those technologies, the AI, cybersecurity, and the blockchain. All of those things are going to need IT security specialists. That's why it's growing so fast. Get into ethical hacking as a career, and let's talk about that a little bit. What it is, what kind of skills you need for it, what they do, and why it may be the right or the wrong choice for you. Typically, an ethical hacker will be employed either by a firm or by a business that specifically keeps them on staff to do the following. They'll look to answer the questions about their own business, by businesses that contract them to do that. So, kind of vulnerabilities does an attacker see when they're trying to attack a company? So, an ethical hacker will probe and try and find the best vulnerabilities, the best way in. What info or systems would a hacker most want to access? So they'll identify the sweet spots, the honeypots inside the organization where hackers will want to try and get into, where they'll want to try and get their code in their hands. And that way you can build up extra security around that. And then what can a hacker do with that information? Because if I keep all my data incredibly encrypted on a sign, then on a server, and even if you get that data off the server, no way in which you can do anything with that information, because if it's encrypted, you just can't access it. It's understanding that. What can they do with the information? And then once they actually perpetrate a hack, using air quotes, you'll have to see how many people noticed hack. Did the IT team catch that there was a hack? What's the best way to fix vulnerability that goes along with this hack? Was it easy to get in? Was it difficult? How smart would a hacker have to be? And sometimes they'll do this all in the actual physical building. Sometimes an ethical hacker will try and physically get inside a building. They'll do real pen tests. They will try and spoof an ID card to get in. They will try and piggyback in off of a person who's walking in and holds the door open for them. It's really interesting what they're trying to do. As far as types of ethical hacking, there are web application hacking, there's system hacking, which are IT based. There's trying to hack wireless networks, making sure they're secure, making sure you can't sniff packets that are going back and forth. Web server hacking, one that most people don't think about, but I think is really interesting, which is social engineering. So one of the main challenges that a lot of organizations face is the type of social engineering that's out there. What do I mean by social engineering? Well, something an ethical hacker may do is they may call an employee who's mid-level, maybe they work in accounting, and pretend to be the help desk. Now, at a large business, that may be very easy to pretend, because how often do we speak to our help desk tech? But But if you believe that a help desk tech is calling you, asking you, saying, oh, you may be the victim of a hack, may be going on inside your organization. We need you to change your password right now. What's your old password? What's your new password going to be? If you're not really computer or tech savvy, that's a great way to get somebody's login credentials. They don't know the difference, help desk and fake help. Or maybe you find a mid-level VP and you connect with them on LinkedIn, or you connect with them on Facebook. And a lot of people nowadays use their pet's name for passwords. I bet at least one person on this call has some combination of birthday, wife or kids' names or names as a password somewhere. And all that information is really readily available on all of our social media profiles. It's very easy for someone with the appropriate skill set to trick into connecting with them on a social media platform and getting that information. So that's something that ethical hackers really deal with, and it's an exciting and kind of newer thing that they're doing, because the rest of this stuff, that web application hacking and the system hacking, we've been since the early 2000s when hacking really became a new discipline. Finally, here are the phases of an ethical hack. First thing you'll do is you'll do your planning and reconnaissance. You'll test your goals. You'll try and identify what intelligence you want to gather. You'll use scanning tools to try and figure out where a target is, how they're responding to your thing. If you're trying to brute force in and you're getting blocked at every turn, maybe you try a different tactic. Once you've gained access, which is typically not all that hard to do, you're going to see where the vulnerabilities are inside the organization. You're going to see if you can maintain that access through an APT, an advanced persistent, and see how long you can maintain that access for. Oftentimes, a really smart cybersecurity team with an incident response team will be difficult to maintain access with, whereas a small business that may not notice the hack until it is months later are very easy to maintain. A lot of times people think about hacking like bank heist. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you're in, then you're out. And you're just grabbing what you can and you're getting away in your escape vehicle. But a lot of times it's more like digging a tunnel into the vault and only checking it at night and just withdrawing a little bit of money from the vault so that they never notice. That's what's really scary. It's not scary necessarily. It's scary to think about somebody brute forcing your system and grabbing all your personally identifiable information and making off with it. What's probably more scary is someone having unlimited access to all your systems for months and months and months at a time. That's one of the things that hackers really try and understand is how long can they stay active. And then again, they'll take all those results and you'll go to the company that hired you or your internal company and you'll say, this is what I found. Now, recently in the news, two ethical hackers were hired to try and penetrate a local courtroom, I believe, in Indiana. And they actually got arrested because the company that hired them never told them never told anybody that this was going on. So they actually got arrested and prosecuted for attempting to do their job. It all got sorted out, but that's the kind of thing that like you can really think about, thinking about whether or not you want to be an ethical hacker. It's a really interesting career. It pays well. The average salary for an ethical hacker, according to Indeed.com, is $91,000 a year. And most of them are early career or experienced. As you can see, it's not a lot of late careers or entry levels, but it's a place that a lot of people kind of into after a few years of doing help desk or IT security. $91,000 average salary, and there are plenty of certifications out there that can help you become an ethical. Let's talk about IT security analysts. They're kind of the opposite of ethical hackers. What IT security analysts do is they perform data analysis to identify the threats that are currently in the market. So they're going to use math, numbers, and AI, which is becoming increasingly important for them, to take a look at what's out there. They're not going to be probing defenses and trying to pretend to be a help desk and see what works and what doesn't. They're going to be using analysis tools to try and understand what threats are out there, what they're most likely to get hit with, may happen if they leave their firewall down, etc. They're also going to be using a lot of threat detection tools, and they're going to be looking in how they can best secure applications and systems. So this is really like a castle defense strategy. These are the people that they're going to be going and setting up all sorts of ways to keep the castle walls safe. And if there is an incident, there's all sorts of different tool sets to try and understand why it happened and how they can reverse engineer those threats. Biggest part of their job typically comes after a cybersecurity incident. They're going to go through, they're going to look through all sorts of logs, they're going to try and understand exactly what happened. So they're really like the Sherlock Holmes. If you think about ethical hackers as kind of like the James Bond, kind of like the spies out there, then the IT security analysts are really the Holmes of this scenario. I'll use a house analogy. The ethical hackers are really kind of like the architects. They're probing when they're building this IT infrastructure. They're probing what will fall down and what will stand up. An IT security analyst is really like a building inspector who would come in after something is built or after there's a problem and then try and understand exactly what went wrong. These are the types of security analysis that get done. It's typically mostly threat management, security architecture, and then a lot of cyber incident response and vulnerability management. And this is typically all done after the fact. So a hack occurs, it's discovered, an IT security analyst. And they'll come in and run tests and do mathematical configurations to understand exactly what happened. And then they'll do a reverse engineering of the hack to understand where the vulnerability was. While an ethical hacker is telling you there's a vulnerability, security analyst is showing you a vulnerability based on an incident that's already happened. So again, if we stick with the house analogy, you've got a flood in your basement. They're not plugging the hole. They're telling you where the hole is and why it happened. And oh, you've got gophers, by the way. The gophers have been there for 6 months. Here's how the next time you get gophers, you don't end up with a hole in your basement. Slide gives me a tiny bit of a headache, but I think it's important to take a look at. These are the phases of a security life cycle. As you can see, this is a complicated career. Although you're going to be doing a lot, but if you like processes and understanding how things work, this is definitely a great type of security role for you. Obviously going to be security operations, vulnerability management, risk analysis, and all of that's going to come from threat intelligence, which is tools that you'll use to understand this. You're going to do a lot of collection and processing of data. You're going to be looking at logs. You're going to be looking at vulnerability databases and threat feeds. You're going to be monitoring the dark web, social media forums to understand exactly what's going on in the marketplace. Again, another Reddit community that I am in is in security, and what often gets posted there are alerts about new malware that's going on, or new phishing scams, or new other security risks based on what is going on the threat landscape. So that's another type of thing that you would be thinking about. As you can see here, a lot of this is flow dependent. Sometimes you're going to have the information before the attack. Sometimes you're going to only have it after the attack. You're going to be spending a lot of time, unfortunately, looking over logs and doing math. And if that's something you're into, this is a great career for you. It wouldn't be for me, because to me, this is too late. It's an absolutely necessary thing, but in today's landscape, if you're analyzing what happened 30 or 60 days into a hack, I think that it's already too late. And that's why I started to see the growth of incident responders, which we'll get into in a second. Average salary is around $76,000. It's a very early career type of job. Almost 60% of people go into this as their kind of early career. So after help desk, this is a leaping off. Now we're going to close here by talking about incident responders. And I want to give you some statistics as to why incident response has become very popular over the last 2 years. 77% of companies don't have formal cybersecurity response plan, or they don't really have anything yet in place, even though they need it. 57% of business leaders said it's taking longer to resolve cybersecurity incidences, and 65% said attacks or severity is increasing. So what we know from those two statistics is a lot of companies just don't have an incident response plan, even though they're employing ethical hackers and cybersecurity analysts. And these attacks are getting worse and worse. And as we know, 3 out of 4 businesses are going to face a visible disruption. 22 factors that can either increase or decrease the cost of a data breach, according to the IBM Ponemon Institute. Having an incident response team has been found to be the most beneficial. Important when the average cost of a data breach, regardless of the size of your company, is $3.86 million. So if you're a company that makes $10, $12 million a year and you have a data breach, you're going to be suffering a quarter of that, a third of that in just cost and remediating. And most of that cost comes because these attacks go unnoticed. 46% of small businesses will be attacked, and 60 some odd percent won't even do anything about it because they just simply don't know that it happened. It's led to a new role in the IT security space. It's called an incident responder. Um, Typically, what an incident responder will do is they're going to understand the threat landscapes, and they're going to know both attacks techniques and post-attack techniques. They're going to kind of know a little bit from the ethical hacking side and a little bit from the analyst side. They're going to really understand how social engineering is used, but most importantly, know how to immediately respond to a cybersecurity. Because as we know, 90% of incidences are caused by end users. Small businesses are getting it all the time. Many are not remediating. Many don't even know that these attacks are happening. So what an incident responder does is they take care of a hack as it happens. Because time is money, and the longer a hack goes undetected, the more damage it's going to do. And so that's what an incident responder will really work. The primary front line, there's an attack occurring. And the red lights go off and everyone's running around. They're the person you trust to sit down and shut off the avenues that the attack is coming in on. They're the ones that you can trust to attack before it gets any PII. That's who you want on your team who for that type of situation. Of threats do they typically deal with? They deal a lot with botnets, which are small ways of taking over already established computer networks to launch attacks or devices to launch attacks. They deal with advanced persistent threats established once a hacker's inside a company. They deal with ransomware, of course, which is a huge problem now in all the cybersecurity landscapes. And they deal with zero-day exploits all the time, things that are just system getting information and getting out. And of course, your typical malware, things that can destroy a network or deal with all these types of threats. And they have to be ready for each one of these. So it's a really rewarding and challenging career. Here are the phases of an actual security incident. So as you can see here, the first thing any incident responder is going to do is they're going to do proper recon. They're going to look at how whatever system is being affected is being weaponized, how that weaponization is being delivered, exploit is, how it's being installed, what are the paths that it's being installed, how it's being controlled. Is it have a mind of its own? Is it being by an outside force. Basically, is it a keylogger, or is it something that's being installed and somebody is remotely running it from a terminal that's being bounced all across the internet through a VPN connection? And lastly, how it's meant to disrupt. Because a lot of times what people don't realize that an incident can be for a variety of reasons. It can be to steal information. It can be to destroy systems. Simply be to monitor what the competition is doing. So what is the intended disruption of? Because a lot of times what will happen is that you'll assume it's doing one thing, but that's a Trojan horse, really and figuratively, and you don't understand what it's actually trying. The average salary of an incident responder is around $5,000. Of course, there are less incident responders on Indeed than there are the other two because this is a newer career field for IT security. You can see this is for folks that are probably a little further down the stack. It's still 46% are early career, but a lot are mid and late career experience. I would say that of the three roles, this is the one that you can probably benefit from certification training the most. Just simply because it lives a little further down the IT stack, has a great salary, and is being used by both security, like SOCs, and also by businesses now. It's a new type of position that's out there, but people are really starting to engage with this concept of having an incident response. When IBM says it's the most important thing for lowering the cost of a cybersecurity incident, you can bet people will listen. How do you choose which one is right for you? What I want to do is I want to ask you, if your house was on fire, if the place that you lived was burning down, who would you want responding? So my question is that do you want the architect, the person who designed the house, the person that knows where the structural flaws are, but is and that's their whole job, is to design and help set up, and they may know where the fire vulnerabilities are. They may have told you about. Do you want the architect to show up? Do you want someone who will inspect the building after it's burned down to determine what caused the fire? Was it lint in the dryer? Was it leaving a pan on the stove? Was it arson? You want that person to show up. Surely a very important thing that you're definitely going to need. You want a person with a hose and an axe show up to help immediately put out the fire. And while all three of these roles are critical inside organizations, I would suggest that the thing that we have with the most, specifically given the fact that 90% of cybersecurity incidents are now almost unavoidable, suggests that the best job would not be the ethical hacker on the left or the cybersecurity analyst on the right, but the incident responder in the middle, coming and making sure that whatever is happening, it's at least contained and under control before you bring in the other two. Of incident response and certification, logical operations does have a partnership with CertNexus to offer one of the only incident response certifications available on the market, and that's called CyberSec First Responder. Now, CyberSec First Responder is a 40-hour or 5-day training class with a Pearson VUE 100-question certification that is ANSI accredited in 4 boxes on the DoD 8570. Target candidate's going to have 2 to 3 years of experience and likely will hold 1 to 3 IT certifications. And they could be coming from a variety of different job titles, including IT directors, network security, ethical hackers, etc. It's very comparable to CISM or CHFI or CE8. And if you've listened to this presentation and you really like ethical hacking, there are great certifications out there for that. CyberSec First Responder can also help augment that. Same with the analysis side. If you say, I'm really more of like a mathematical analyst type of guy, I'd like to do that. That sounds very interesting to me. Certification can also help with that as well because it straddles the line between the other. And lastly, of course, if you want to be the firefighter, if you want to be the organizational hero, person that's busting in, putting out the proverbial fire, and I would suggest taking a look at CFR, CyberSec First Responder, as your next certification. It is a great certification, and it's offered through CertNexus. Logical Operations can help you with the courseware part of it. But, they're one of our training partners, and we can help you get set up with CFR certification. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me, give me a call at the number below, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to assist with any questions you might have about this presentation or anything else around cybersecurity.